Hello and welcome to the Nature Garden podcast with me, Carl Steinson, and the weekending show team from Lionheart Radio. Come along with us as we take a festive wander down the garden path and country lane with the birds and the bees and the flowers and trees, and it's a chance to hear some great music and Northumbrian stories. In this episode, it's time to deck the halls with boughs of holly, to dress the tree and to celebrate. And in this festive edition, our correspondents are here to spread some cheer. So stand by for the two Toms on Christmas trees and some alternative Christmas birds. Steve Lowe on giving gifts that, well, they can really help people across the world. A lovely piece coming up filled with good cheer. John and Dean return with mistletoe and ivy. Something a little different from the Alnwick Poison Garden. Plus some top tips for the garden from Tom Pattinson. All coming up on the Nature Garden podcast. What a joy a Christmas tree can be, although it can get a tad bit confusing working out which one suits you best. So, here's Tom Pattinson with a festive guide.
Hi Carl, I've been thinking about Christmas. Yes, plants associated with Christmas. I know you heard the word correctly. We don't normally use it at this time of year, do we? The first week in December, or do we? People are asking me questions about Christmas trees and which is the best one or best type to buy, and how do I look after it once I've bought it? Well, I've got to answer those questions, so let's address them. You've got three main choices when it comes to trees. It can be an artificial type, which when Christmas is over, you fold up the branches, pack it into the loft, and leave it there until next year. Bring it out again, dust it down, and off you go. One of those, they're not cheap. They're expensive these days. I've seen some beautiful artificial Christmas trees, but here's the point. They look so much like the original, the living tree. On some occasions, they look so good, I've had to go up to them and take a sniff to see if that beautiful pine-type fragrance is there. £100, £200, you keep on going up through the scale. If you're prepared to buy something that could, in theory, last you a lifetime for the price it's going, fair enough, do it. Straightforward stuff, that. And then the second choice is those growing Christmas trees, generally quite small, anywhere between 30 to 60 centimetres, possibly a bit taller if you want to spend a bit more money. But they're actually growing, they've got their roots, they're in a container, and I see a lot of them on the market at the moment. They've been on for a few weeks actually, since early November anyway. So how do you look after those? Well, when you living plant, when you take it into your home, which is where you want it to be, I guess, keep it in the coolest room possible, with plenty of light, and don't forget to water it. When Christmas is over, take it outside, even in the frost, because it's a hardy plant. Take it outside and either stand it on the patio or in the yard, but make sure it's watered throughout the year. Repeat, throughout the year. Don't just leave it to stand there and be looked after by Mother Nature with showers of rain and things of that nature. Another way of treating it, and this is the way I do it, I've done it before, is to dig a hole in the garden, which gets a bit of sun. Dig a hole that's slightly bigger than the pot or the container it's growing in. Plunge it into that hole, the pot, and then backfill it and water it. And you can't see the pot, but you know it's in that pot, ready for next year. So you water it, you feed it during the growing season, during the summer. And then when it comes to just before next Christmas, dig the pot up carefully. Roots will have come out the top and the bottom. Trim those roots, wash the pot down, and take it indoors to use it. It can be done. The third type is the cut tree, and there are literally millions of these sold every year throughout the world, and so many in this country, and they're all lined up at the moment. Some of them folded in their nets, they've gone through that tube packing machine, but the ones I'd like to look at if I'm going to buy one that's been cut with no roots, those are the ones I like to see the shape, and they generally have them in a stand, so you can get an idea of what they're going to look like in the house. Two main types there. One of them is the traditional Norway spruce, Parsia pungens, and the other one, these are the main types, you'll get quite a few different types of Christmas tree. Nordman fir is the other, Parsia arbies, the Nordman fir. The difference between them is Parsia pungens, the Norway spruce, has a reputation of losing quite a lot of needles if you don't put it to a clamp and stand with a reservoir in and keep it watered. The Norway spruce has a reputation of hanging on to its needles. This is why it's much more expensive to buy. It's been estimated that a 2-meter tall Christmas tree, say a Norway spruce, holds 20,000 needles, and you don't want to lose those. So you've got to water the plant, and it can use up to, or it can process up to 1 litre of water a day in the room, depending on the room temperature. That gives you a little food for thought. Treat your cut Christmas tree like a flower you've just cut from the border, a summer flower. It's going into a vase. What do? You cut a small piece off the base of the stem, because there's some conductive tissue cells in there which can still conduct the water up through the plant and keep it going. And that's what you do with a Christmas tree. You get it home, you saw 2 to 3 centimetres from the base to reveal those living conductive cells, and plunge it straight into your clamp, which has got a reservoir in, and it will stand there and keep the water topped up. Check it every day. Keep it going, and at the end of the journey with your cut tree, don't waste it. Take it to the local recycling outlet and have it shredded and used for either pathway, mulching, or something of that nature.
Some unexpected visitors have been brightening up our gardens and fields, and according to Tom Cadwallander from the British Trust for Ornithology, the waxwing excitement is growing.
Last month, I mentioned that there were a few waxwings coming into the UK from their Northern European breeding grounds. Now, waxwings, I don't know if you've looked it up, but waxwings are incredibly sort of pretty birds. And, well, I might say that, mightn't I? But they are. They've got this kind of pinkish wash about them. They're about the size of a starling, and they have this pink wash. But they also have this kind of pinkish crest as well, which is quite long enough to kind of be caught by the wind, and it'll travel back and forward, and it sets them off a picture. But the reason why it gets its name, waxwing, is that if you look closely at the wing and some of the flight feathers, and we're looking at the kind of the feathers closest to the body, and now there's a mixture of black and white and yellow there, but importantly, the feathers closest to the body, which are known as tertials, those ones are tipped with a sealing wax red, hence the name waxwing. So that's where they get it from. But also, the tails, there's a little bar at the end of the tail which is yellow as well. So they're really quite colourful and very, very pretty. So the thought was that last month there was the first sort of vanguard of these birds were coming in. And the reason why they come across here to winter, and they don't normally winter here, they go through a process of what is known as an eruption. And that they do that because their normal food, winter food, back home in northern Scandinavia has failed to an extent, or they've had a good breeding season and there isn't enough food for them. So they will kind of move west in search of food, and that's exactly what's happened. And I did report back to say that it could be a waxwing winter, and if it is, I'll tell you more about it. Well, I'm here and I'm telling you, it is a waxwing winter, and there are lots and lots and lots and lots of waxwings around. Even our esteemed colleague and very good friend, Tom Pat, has had some in his garden. In fact, I saw a little flock just outside of his garden the other day, and that was quite something. I had to let him know about that. But yes, Tom Pat, the demon gardener of Lesbury, has had some in his garden. So there are a lot of them around, and frustratingly, in this part of the world, in my bit of Northumberland, in North Northumberland, they haven't lingered at all. They've been. I've seen several flocks of them, but I've picked them up quite briefly at the top of trees and things, and you hear them. They have this wonderful little trill noise, and you pick that out, and it's you see them on the top of there, but they move off very, very quickly. They're in search of berries, basically. And in northeast England, there has been a number of flocks reported, some of them up to kind of 90 strong, and particularly around Tyneside, which I find fascinating because there are lots of ornamental parks which have ornamental trees in them, of course, and so these have proved to be a fantastic sort of attraction. So places like in North Shields, Cramlington, Whitley Bay have attracted big numbers of waxwings. But I'm hearing just in the last few days there's a flock of about 40 in Felton, which is just on the banks of the River Coquet, in kind of mid to North Northumberland, which is a good sign. And indeed, there was a flock of about 40 in Howick, and they stayed for a good day and a half, which is quite unusual compared to what they have been doing in the last couple of weeks, where they just haven't lingered at all, which is very, very frustrating from my point of view. But these other places, they've kind of stuck. Where there's been berries, they've stuck. But sometimes, they've been seen to be fly catching. When the weather is just a little bit warmer and there's a little bit sunny, there's generally sort of big hatchings of insects. And these waxwings, whilst they're berry feeders, can be seen fly catching from the tops of trees, and they look a picture in their pink plumage and their kind of yellow flashes in their wings, and look fabulous. But it's not just here, it's right across the country. I'm picking up reports now of them right across the country. And in fact, I've seen videos of in northern Scotland, of near Elgin, of a flock of about 500 just feeding on these ornamental berries. It's quite staggering, really. And right down into the south of the country now, they really are infiltrating, and they're coming in, and it doesn't appear to be slowing down at all, and they're piling in. So obviously the berries in Scandinavia haven't really come to fruition, which is interesting in its own right. It does happen on a regular basis, this, by the way. It's not just exceptional this year. It does happen every few years. We get waxwing eruptions, and most winters we have one or two, but this year is really, really quite exceptional. So yes, they're moving through the country. So keep an eye out, even in your garden. And if the demon gardener of Lesbury, Tom Pat, can get them in his garden, although he's a gifted man, there's no reason why you shouldn't. So yes, keep your eyes open. Waxwings are delightful, and listen out for them. And that's how I find them, just by listening.
And now we welcome back John Knox and Dean Smith from the Poison Garden at Alnwick Garden, with tales of mistletoe and the holly and the ivy, followed by Tom Pattinson on how and where they grow best.
Hello, and welcome to Tales from the Hovel with Dean and John. This week we're going to talk about plants that are associated with Christmas.
So today we're going to talk about holly. The iconic Christmas decoration with its shiny green leaves and bright red berries. But there's more to this plant than meets the eye. So grab your favourite holiday drink and let's unravel the historic tapestry and hidden dangers of holly. Our story begins in ancient Rome, during the Saturnalia festival. Picture this, a time of merriment, a precursor to our Christmas celebrations. The Romans exchanged holly wreaths as tokens of goodwill. Fast forward, and these traditions blend into the Christian symbolism. The prickly leaves, well, they represent the crown of thorns. And those red berries, drops of blood of Christ. It's fascinating how a simple plant and carry such potent symbolism through the ages. But here's where things get a bit toxic. Holly's alluring berries are not as innocent as they appear. They contain theobromine, the same compound found in chocolate. In small doses, it's a harmless stimulant, but in large quantities, it's a recipe for trouble, especially for curious pets and little ones. Now let's talk about the risks. Those red berries, as attractive as they are a hidden danger during the festive season. Accidentally eating them can lead to nausea, vomiting, and well, let's just say it's not going to be a very merry experience. It's crucial to keep these plants out of reach and know what to do in case of accidental ingestion. So how do we balance the cultural significance and the safety aspect of holly? It's all about informed interaction. We can admire and use holly in our holiday traditions, but with respect for its natural defences. Understanding both the beauty and the risks allow us to appreciate holly's place in our holiday traditions while keeping our celebrations safe.
Another plant which is associated with Christmas is, of course, ivy. Ivy is poisonous, and of course it is ivy. But it's not poison ivy. That occurs mainly in the United States. Ivy can affect us in a number of ways. If you eat it, you're likely to have a stomach upset. If you're handling it, you're very likely to suffer skin irritation. But most dangerous of all, if you pull this off a wall, off a fence, off a tree, well then you unleash the plant's defence mechanism, which is to produce copious amounts of white dust. On a calm, still day when those dust particles are just floating in the air, you're likely to experience respiratory problems. And if you suffer from asthma, it can trigger an attack. So you should always wear a mask when you're dealing with ivy. Ivy did feature in Roman culture. Ivy was associated with various Roman deities, especially Bacchus, the god of wine and festivity. Ivy wreaths were symbols of intellectual achievement in ancient Rome, echoing Greek traditions where poets and scholars were crowned with ivy. It was also believed if you wore a crown of ivy, that could prevent you from getting drunk if you was drinking copious amounts.
Let's delve into the ancient origins, romantic symbolism, and the surprisingly toxic nature of mistletoe. Our story starts with Druids, ancient priests who cherished mistletoe for its supposed healing powers. Fast forward through history and we find mistletoe as a symbol of peace in Scandinavian legends and a romantic emblem in the Victorian era. But beneath this lies a darker side. Mistletoe's darker side is revealed in its chemistry. The plant contains viscotoxin, a potent compound that can cause serious harm if ingested. This toxin is primarily found in the berries and leaves of the plant. Ingesting these parts can lead to symptoms like blurred vision, nausea, abdominal pain, and in severe cases seizure and even death. It's a stark reminder that this holiday decoration should be handled with care, especially around children and pets. So what are the risks? Well, mistletoe adorns our doorways. It poses a real danger. It's crucial to understand the symptoms of mistletoe poisoning and take necessary precautions when decorating with this plant. Celebrating safely is the key to a good Christmas. In conclusion, mistletoe presents a cultural contrast. Revered for its connection to love and vitality, it also harbours a potentially harmful secret. As we embrace the romantic traditions associated with mistletoe, let's also maintain a safe and informed interaction with this plant. Now, before we wrap up, let's hand over to Tom, who's going to share some fascinating insights into how and where mistletoe likes to grow. Stay tuned.
And so too, those other three icons of Christmas, the holly, the ivy, and the mistletoe. I have 2 hollies in the garden, and both of them set fruit or berries. And this is important. If this is one of the main reasons you buy a holly, I suppose, if you want to. There are lots of different attractive leafed hollies, but they don't all give you berries. Reason why? The flower parts vary. best time to check whether yours is going to give you fruit or berries at all is in May-June period when it's flowering. Get a hand lens and examine the flower under the hand lens, and if it has a male and a female part, or male and female parts, that is the stamens, the male part, and the pistil, the female part, you're going to get berries, self-fertile it is, and you're going to be fine. But if it's just got the male part, the stamen, you're never going to get berries. Some of them just have the female part with pistil, and they can be pollinated by some other holly nearby. So check that out. You'll ask the nurseryman, is this one self-fertile? Will it have berries? Yes. Basically, one of ours in this garden is Ilex aquifolium, and that's the native holly. And it's existed so long, ever since Saturnalia, I guess, the Roman celebrated period this time of year. And it's existed so long because it's so prickly. What predator is going to try to nibble those leaves? Oh, I wouldn't. They're difficult to handle. So that's a sure one to give you fruits. But the Ilex aquifolium, the species aquifolium, has an offshoot from it, a cultivar, which is called J.C. Van Tol. And J.C. Van Tol has lovely green leaves and no prickles on it. It's just prickle-free, and it's self-fertile and has those beautiful groups of berries on this time of year. It also has a variegated version, which is quite something to look at. I do wish I'd planted that when I came to this garden, but we had 2 hollies already. The other one is a variegated variety, and here again you've got to watch. If you buy something called Silver King or Silver Queen, it's a male. They got it wrong in the beginning when they classified the plant, and if you buy something called Silver King, it's a female. So watch out for that. There's a group of hollies which are low growing, and one of them that sticks out in my mind is Ilex crenatum. Some people in the past have had box hedges surrounding parterres or the garden, and they've got box blight, and there are other options. Take out the box if it's got box blight, replace it with Ilex crenatum, which just grows to about 30 centimetres tall, and of course has berries, one of the options. Moving on from the holly to the ivy, we've got so much in this garden. There are some beautiful varieties, indoor types and hardy types, gorgeous different shapes and colours and mottled appearance, golden, silver, etc. So many different types, but we've got the native ivy, Hedera helix, the hibernica. Hedera helix is unfortunately, it can be difficult to handle. In effect, it's simple to handle, but there's an after effect, which is it can give you a nasty rash. You may be allergic to it, so you've got to be careful. I use gloves when I'm handling it, and if you have, certainly don't try ingesting it because it is a poisonous plant. Ivies are straightforward. Then the mistletoe, difficult to grow because it's a parasite. But you do see them growing on trees. The 2 favourites are number 1, the apple trees, and number 2, hawthorn, crataegus. On the apple, great bunches of them. How do they get there? How do they start on an apple tree? Good question. Well, it's Viscum album, and it has a substance, the fruit or berry, called viscin, and that viscin sticks to a bird's beak when the birds eat them. Missel thrush is one of the key spreaders, and that's very effective if you think about it. It tries to get rid of the sticky seed or stone within the berry, and it goes to a branch, generally an apple tree or hawthorn, rubs it, and it goes into a crevice in the stem, and that's the way it works. If you want to try it yourself, you've got some mistletoe Christmas time, here's what to do. If you've got an apple tree, make just a gentle little cut into it, just through the outer layer of bark, and pop the seed in under there. Seed or 2 seeds, 3 seeds, and just close it up again and leave it. Leave it to nature.
Steve Lowe is fresh back from the frazzin' cold outdoors at the Cresswell Peel Tower, where he's been helping a project that's turning discarded tools into things of real value for people in need.
Hello everyone, I hope you're all okay. I've just come in after a morning spent at Cresswell in the walled garden at the Peel Tower, and it's blooming freezing out there, I've got to tell you. But I've had a really interesting morning, not least of which because I met, I'm going to call him Chris, as a gentleman who's actually collecting materials to send to the Ukraine. So what I was able to do with him this morning was provide him with a number of spades and forks, small hand tools, hammers, things like that, all of which are actually going to be repurposed and then sent abroad to help people re-establish their lives in the war-torn country. Now, it might be sound odd because I'm actually working for a charitable project, but we've actually been gifted quite a large number of surplus garden tools, and we can't use them all, so we've actually graded quite a number. There's the odd ones that are, I'm going to say broken, but they just need a bit of repair. And Chris is going to do all of that. He's going to sharpen them all, he's going to clean them all up, and then they'll all be repackaged and sent across to the Ukraine. I was amazed when he was telling me the stories that, and this is a project called Morpeth for Ukraine, and they've been collecting materials for a while. That includes things like blankets and sleeping bags, stuff like that. But I was particularly impressed with the fact that they've been able to obtain an old fire engine, an old ambulance. They've been able to repair them, kit them out, and then they're all shipped abroad with the loads of other equipment, which can include things like, writing equipment, medical supplies is the obvious one, and they've also been able to get like a 4x4 vehicle. And I was chatting to him about what they might use some of the tools that we were providing for. He was pointing out that they have to send people out on patrols, and they've got to repair things. They've got, they need all sorts of, they have to dismantle all sorts of things like booby traps and things like this. And it was just like, it's a totally different world to the one we're living in. So I was particularly taken by the fact that this was, utilising things that we would normally, quite honestly, throw away. And here they are having a new life and being sent abroad. He told me one story about a recent mission, if you like, where they'd been particularly short of shovels and spades, and I was really pleased to be able to provide him with a few of those. And you might think, well, what was it that important? But actually, he was saying that these had gone to the, I think it was the Dnipro area in Ukraine, where people had been using these to actually dig silt and things out of the house after a dam had collapsed. So, these things are simply sitting in an abandoned corner of the walled garden, now going to do life-saving and humanitarian things, which amazes me. Now, I've actually said to Chris that we'll try to get some more stuff together. As I say, we often get donations of things, and it struck me that this is something that's worth a little bit of a wider call. So if anybody is listening to this and wants to actually make a similar contribution, then please feel free to contact me via the Cresswell Peel Tower web pages, or simply to drop stuff down at the Peel Tower itself, and we'll make good use of it. And what I'll try and do is get a little bit of feedback, obviously, for listeners. And what I'm aiming to do as well is put together a little story about the Peel Tower itself, so that we, which has moved on apace, and we now have the walled garden. But I think that will have to wait until I've defrosted myself for now. So I hope everyone's well, and what a great thing we've done today. And canny everyone.
This is the Nature Garden podcast with Carl Steinson, Tom Pattinson, Tom Cadwallander and Steve Lowe.
We love to celebrate our Christmas birds in songs and on cards. It's a traditional thing, but maybe it's time to think about some others. Tom Cadwallander's casting his eye across the globe, for some alternative Yuletide birds.
As we're getting well through the winter season and Christmas is almost upon us, the conversation generally gets round to kind of Christmas birds, really. And there are some kind of classics which we're all familiar with. And the first one, I suppose, is the robin. It's on everyone's Christmas cards, or kind of quite a few of your Christmas cards. You'll have flocks of them in your front room when you get your Christmas cards. But I was just thinking, wouldn't it be fun to have a slightly irrelevant or irreverent even look at some Christmas birds or potential Christmas birds from around the world? I don't know whether you've heard of Christmas islands in the Pacific Ocean. Well, these islands are quite remote, and there are a number of small birds, passerine birds, which are endemic to those islands. And there's also one or two seabird species that visit there, and one or two are endemic. And the word endemic really means is the fact that they're found nowhere else in the world. And as a consequence, they're now known as Christmas Island, whatever it is. And one of the things that I was thinking about was Christmas Island shearwater. Shearwaters are really an oceanic species, and they've got tube noses, and they're kind of related to albatrosses, and they'll nest underground as well. So we have Christmas Island shearwaters, but also there's a Christmas Island frigate bird, and there's a Christmas Island imperial pigeon. Now, imperial pigeons are kind of not like our wood pigeons. They're kind of they are related, of course, but they're found in Southeast Asia, and they're quite big on their size, and they're quite long as well. But we do have the Christmas Island imperial pigeon. Sounds very, very grand, very, very Christmassy-like. But there's also the Christmas boughs. And boughs are Australian and Southeast Asian owls. So there's something different. Hey, a Christmas owl, a Christmas boughs. And these are, as I mentioned, these are endemic species found nowhere else in the world. So they're fantastic candidates for Christmas, I think. Other species that I'm thinking of, there's a species called a mistletoe bird, and mistletoe is always around for Christmas time. The white berries of the mistletoe, and it's parasitic because it will actually grow in the crevices and hollows of other tree species. But there is a species of bird called the mistletoe bird, and it's found in Australia, and it's a flower pecker, which we don't have any flower peckers in Britain, never mind Europe, but they are quite a Southeast Asian into Australasia species. And the mistletoe bird is about the size of a house sparrow, but it's got a red on its breast, so you can see the similarities between that and our robin. And these berries, particularly the mistletoe berries. And if it wasn't for the mistletoe bird, the mistletoe wouldn't be as widespread in Australia as it is. And it is amazing how widespread mistletoe is within the grand and the great big continent of Australia. Well, mistletoe birds are really quite nomadic, and really are quite associated with mistletoe. Again, another prime candidate for a Christmas bird, without a doubt. And now then, thinking and continuing the theme of being in Southeast Asia, there is a species of hornbill. Now, hornbills are quite interesting because they have, as the name suggests, they have a very, very large bill. They're quite big birds, size of rooks, but they're not necessarily all black. Some of them are, though, but they have lots of different colours. But there's a species of hornbill called the wreathed hornbill, and the first name gives it away, the wreath. And it's not because it has this kind of wreath around its neck. It has markings on its bill which do look like the wreaths that you would hang on your front door during Christmas time, which is quite an odd thing. So, the idea of having wreaths as well as funeral wreaths, we do have Christmas wreaths as well. And this hornbill, though, is quite a pretty thing. It's got a large pale yellow bill, and it's black with black legs, but it has lots of yellow around its neck. And as I mentioned, it has ridges or wreaths on its upper mandible, which hence its name. This bird is found from northern India right through to Southeast Asia, and it helps with kind of seed dispersal through these high montane rainforests. but it also eats insects and lizards and so forth. But here's an expression. Thinking about this hornbill, this wreathed hornbill, I think about the how it feeds, and it feeds through a method known as ballistic food transport. Yes, ballistic food transport. Who's heard of such a thing? But yes, it's a real thing, and what it really means is that the hornbill, with its big bill, holds the big seed in its bill and throws its head back so the food will slide down the bill and down into its throat. Quite an amazing thing, but that's known as ballistic food transport. Now there's something. You learn something new every single day, and I'm pleased to say I've learned something new as well, and it's great. So yes, there's a lot of things going on there in the birding world, and this kind of irrelevant, and I think there's a Freudian slip again, and irreverent Christmas birds. But what I wanted to sort of mention again, though, this other species is called a joyful bulbul. Now, a joyful bulbul, perfect, really, when you think about it. It's the season to be joyful, and the bulbul is a songbird, and it's about the size of a blackbird, between a blackbird and a songthrush. And again, from the bulbuls and green bulls are found in eastern Central Africa, right down through into Asia. And they have lovely fluty songs, these birds, but they're not particularly colourful, shall we say, brightly plumaged. But the joyful bulbul is quite colourful. It's kind of a yellow underneath, which sets it off really quite nicely, and very, very pretty. So yes, we've got a few interesting, amusing, if you like, Christmas birds. But I want to go to North America now. And there's a couple more there that I want to mention. And the first one is kind of probably the most numerous of them all, is the red cardinal, or sometimes known as the northern cardinal. And this is all red bird, and it's about the size of a starling, and it has a crest, but it has a little kind of a conal or a conical bill, pink coloured, but also has a black face. But the idea of cardinal has been around during the winter time, and it's a winter visitor to many backyards or gardens, as we would say here, but in backyards in North America, and they really are quite common, and they will feed and in a similar way, or be present in a similar way to our house sparrows and so forth. So that's kind of the fact that it's red coloured. And you look at some of the illustrations, and if you squint up your eyes just a little bit, you could almost think of Father Christmas dressed in his red suit. You never know, But the other North American species I want to mention is the turkey. Now, if there ever was a misnomer, and it's the turkey. Now, there are two species of turkey. One's wild turkey, and the other one's ocellated. And the ocellated is found in Mexico, and the wild turkey is found in North America and Mexico, northern Mexico. Not turkey. The reason it's got its name turkey is because they were captured and domesticated, then imported into Europe via Turkey. So this was back in the 1700s, and so that's how they got the name, because they were imported into Europe via Turkey. But they've become really quite traditional in our Christmas fair, and indeed to an extent they are in North America as well, where they're found. But probably more obviously they're a Thanksgiving bird. Really, that's what we think about in North America. But yes, in Europe, there's certainly a Christmas bird, and the males are called toms. Ha, yes, and the young males are called jakes. Now, this is an interesting thing. And the females are called hens. But yes, so if there's a nice range of kind of Christmassy birds there. Some of them are kind of more exotic than others, but it all kind of works together, So it's all good stuff, and we should be thinking sort of creatively. But yes, when it comes to winter time and we think about birds in our gardens, what we shouldn't forget is the house sparrows and the chaffinches and all of those common birds that come into our gardens. We mustn't forget that they need food, and it's quite a tough time of year for them. And particularly when the snows come and the ground's frozen, we should try to put food out. But importantly, we should make sure there's water in our gardens for these birds to drink, because water is so vitally important So we shouldn't forget about our garden birds when we're kind of tucking into our Christmas fair, and right through the winter time we shouldn't forget about these birds. So anyway, folks, nice touch of Christmas, and I hope you enjoy yours. Bye.
And to the sound of War Blackbird, here's Tom with some things to be getting on with in the garden.
And so it's jobs for the week time. I'm overwintering some plants in the house, in the conservatory. They've got a temperature of about 12 to 15 Celsius. Some of them have gone into semi-dormancy. Others, though, are some of the plants that we have around us, like to have around us at this time of year, where those dark days get a bit of colour. I'm talking about things like the poinsettia, cyclamen, and orchids, or some early bulbs perhaps flowering. Those need a little water because they're in growth, active growth. So just be careful. Water some, those that need it. Others, let them dry off a bit. They'll not die. The other thing I'm thinking about at the moment is I have quite a bit of fruit stored, quite a lot in the freezer, of course, the soft fruits from summer picking. They're okay, but apples, for example, I have a rack of drawers, stack, and they got each one labelled, dessert varieties and the culinary varieties, and there's one goes off occasionally no matter how careful you've been in packing them. So they're not individually wrapped, they're just in the drawers according to their cultivars, varieties, and not touching. But if there's one just slightly going off, get it out because it will spoil the rest. And don't just throw it away, leave it on the lawn or something for the birds because they love them at this time of year. This is nature's planting time still, but not when there's frost around. So on some of those days when the temperature is around the 7, 8, 10 Celsius, which is still quite cool, but that's okay for planting as long as there's no frost. Look for, if you've got some, say you've got some roses have arrived, bare rooted, they're dormant, of course. Wait until there's an opportunity, keep them in a bucket of water for a couple of days, they won't take any harm from that, and then when there's an opportunity, no frost around, get them planted. The fruit trees and the fruit bushes as well, of course, they each year about this time, and it can continue throughout winter, they have a mulch, an organic mulch, whether it's from composted material or some old material you've got that's been lying around, horse manure, cow manure. Just spread it around the surface at the base of the tree or the bush. They love it. It'll keep things warmer during the winter, the roots, and moist and cool in summer. The mulch is the life's blood for many of these shrubs as well, of course, and the herbaceous border. So don't be afraid to get some mulch down. It'll just work into the soil. The other thing I'm thinking about at the moment is, and I'm guilty of this, I buy some bulbs, I leave them in the packet, don't get time to plant them, and there they are. Should have planted them late October into November, and if I leave them in the packet, they'll just waste away. So that's not the thing to do. What I've been doing recently is planting them up in bowls and in small pots, and bring them on those in the pots, even if he's bringing them into the house. But they stay alive that way, and even if they don't flower this next spring, at least they're alive and they'll flower the year after. You're not wasting them. One of the big things I do at the moment too is get catalogues ordered. Doesn't matter if you're not going to buy anything from the catalogue, but a catalogue is knowledge, gives you all the times of sowing, different varieties of plants, new varieties, introductions, everything you want to know. And if you've got a particular interest like growing vegetables or flowers or fruit trees, there's a supplier of catalogue and a specialist in each of those fields. So it doesn't do any harm to have the catalogues around you. Makes good winter reading anyway. So, these are just a few of the jobs I'm tackling this week. Whatever you do, enjoy your gardening.
You've been listening to Gardener Tom Pattinson, birder Tom Cadwallander from the British Trust for Ornithology, John Knox and Dean Smith from the Alnwick Poison Garden, and Steve Lowe from the Cresswell Peel Tower. I'm Carl Steinson, and don't forget you can listen back to all of our previous programmes via the Nature Garden podcast. Enjoy your gardening and time outdoors with nature, and have a wonderful Christmas when you get there. Bye for now.
Light a candle in the window, put a star upon the tree. Get caught up in the magic and all the mystery. Cheer up, Ebenezer, just forget the blues. The Christmas story's here and it's good news. Love's divine and a star will shine and shimmer so far and bright. A red-robed man with a long white beard's getting ready for a busy night. Merry Christmas, a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. Merry Christmas, a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. Write Christmas cards in the kitchen, share some festive food. Hang mistletoe up for kisses and get holly from the wood. Put the Yule log on the fire, fill your cup with cheer. It's time for peace and joy, Christmas is here. And the drummer boy has got his sticks, the fiddler's got her bow. The carol singers have wrapped up warm, the lanterns are starting to glow. The bells are ringing and the ding-dong dinging, it must be Christmas time. The bells are ringing and the ding-dong dinging, it must be Christmas time. Let's bring peace to the world. Let's bring joy to the world. The wonder of life and a bright star shining above. An amazing story all about the power of love. Singers have wrapped up warm and the lanterns are starting to glow. The bells are ringing and the ding-dong dinging, it must be Christmas time. The bells are ringing and the ding-dong dinging, it must be Christmas time. And the drummer boy has got his sticks and the fiddler's got her bow. The carol singers have wrapped up warm and the lanterns are starting to glow. The bells are ringing and the ding-dong dinging, it must be Christmas time. The bells are ringing and the ding-dong dinging, it must be Christmas time.